Today on the Windy Synth, we're going to cover how to make patches for the MC-101 that work well when controlled with the EWI 5000 as a MIDI controller. So what I'm going to do is set up the EWI 5000 MIDI controller. All we have to do is use these two buttons here in conjunction with these two buttons here to set up the controller output of the EWI 5000. And the way we do that is we push this button and we move these two buttons back and forth, and that goes through the menu. And I have channel, and I have that set to 4, so I set it to 4. Click that and it's done. 4 is set for channel 4 here. This is set to MIDI channel 4, and that's what I'm using for my EWI here. And then, let's see, we will go to the breath settings, ES, and in there there's a bunch of different stuff you can set, but what we're interested in is this one, BR, is set for breath, and that little dot there means that this one is on. And so if it's not on, you would press this. It's either high res, low res, or off. And what we want is low res, and that turns it on. We don't want high res. High res is just extra data that doesn't really help. Okay, so that's breath. Then we push this to get out. And then we want to set up the glide strip, which is GL. And so we set up that one, push that. And portamento time, the dot means portamento time is set up. We want portamento time to be set up so when we push this glide strip here, you know, different pressure, the portamento time changes. And then you press this button here, that's enabled. So the DP means the value at which when you've pressed it all the way, and DU means the value you want when it's unpressed all the way. So we'll go to the pressed value and we'll let go of that button. Oops, I'm sorry. You go to the pressed value and then you push that button, and then it says 8, and now you hold it, and then you can move this around. And I've got it set to 8. If you set it really high, the MC-101 will have a really long portamento time, which I don't think was very useful. So 8 is a relatively small value, actually, because it can go all the way to 127. So that's the pressed value, and then if I go to the unpressed value, it's set to 0. So I go out of that. It's the portamento time. And then I also have on here the CC is selected. That dot means that CC is selected. If I press this button, it shows it's enabled. And I want the press value here, hold it down, and it says that's 102 because that dot means it's over 99. So if I go down, see 99, 100, the dots there, 101, 102. It'll go all the way to 127, but that's just what I have it set to. And then let's go down to the unpressed value, and that's 0. And then that's what I have for the glide strip. Okay, so we've got everything set up. We got the EWI 5000 MIDI controller set up properly, connected to the MC-101 as a MIDI interface, connected to the computer, which is connected to the Reaper DAW, and then the VST Zenology Pro module is connected to that. And now we can program some sounds. So let's start with a really simple sound here. Let's just start with the init tone. And then let's just start. I don't want to use the piano sound. That's more of a percussive type instrument. Let's change that to a virtual analog and then we'll just use this sawtooth. We don't have anything else. We have one of the partials, this one partial, that's it. Now you can have 4 oscillators set up, but I've only got the one right now, and you turn them on with this switch here. Okay, so I'll have that set up. The amplitude envelope just goes straight on and then goes across, and then when you let go of the key, it goes back down. So and if I blow a little bit differently, the velocity sensitivity changes what that does. But if I blow softly and then try and swell it, it doesn't change. So I don't want that. So I'm going to turn off the velocity sensitivity. Now it just comes on all the time, full blast. And if I turn down the level here, I don't get anything. So the only thing allowing the level to come through is this right here. But if I turn this down all the way off, and then I go into the range control thing here, and I set up the source for this matrix control here to CCO2, which is the breath control, and then I set that destination to level. That's that same level, only it's going to be controlled by the CCO2, which changes all the time. So now if I turn that up, see, when I don't have it turned up yet, it doesn't do anything. As soon as I start turning up, now it's controlled by the breath. Okay, that's what we do. Now we take this one, and we also change the cutoff frequency here. And you can control it a little bit, a whole bunch. Oh, we need to turn the filter on. It doesn't have any filter. So let's just put a filter here, and we'll turn down the cutoff here like this. All right, so if I don't have this, let me just turn this down so it's not doing anything. When I have this cutoff here, I can put it somewhere in here. How high do I want it to go when it's full blast? But when it's 0, it's going to be some other number. So what we'll do is we'll put this down to like this down here, and it's barely letting anything through because it's low pass filtering. So then what we want to do is change the cutoff so that it's increasing as you blow. That's your basic idea of how to set this up. Now, there's another thing we want to do here on this partial. So this goes immediately from on when this envelope thing, and that can create it kind of glitchy with some sound. So we're going to turn this over just a smidge. And this doesn't, it's really hard to control this. It says 28 right now. If you wanted to go a little less than 28 or some other number, now if I go to the next one, it goes up to 70. It's really hard to get it a different number. So if you wanted a different number, you have to go into the Pro Edit page where you have a list. All of these little controls are also listed in the Pro Edit page, and then there's the little dialog boxes you can get to. But that's kind of hard to find. So if I go to the amplitude envelope section and I look for the these numbers here, you can see here's that number T1 attack is 28. So if I wanted to make that 10 or something, then I can type it in, just type it in there. And that's how you have to do that, unfortunately, because it's really hard to adjust over here. And then the way this is the release time too, and so you might want to, pull that back a little bit so it doesn't ring out. Doesn't make that much difference on this patch, but sometimes it will. So just a little, like, again, you can put it all the way 0, but that's probably too abrupt, and you just put it out a little bit, 24, 38, okay, well, that's good. So there's that. Then if you want to change, you can change the resonance. But what I did was we hooked up the horn so that the resonance is controlled by the glide strip, and you can see this resonance control is actually changing as I push my finger down on the glide strip. So when I blow on this, as I move my thumb across there. Okay, so that's the basic idea of a tone. And then if you wanted to add a noise source, I put it on 4 so it gets out of the way of adding other ones. You would do this and go to noise, and then with the noise source, well, one thing you can do with these before you do that, if you're going to be making the amp EQ the same on all of them and starting the filter position the same thing, you can start with the way it's set up here and go to the Pro Edit and go to Utility and say Copy Tone Partial 1, and then you can paste it into Tone Partial 4, and that pastes all of the parameters from this one into this one. So if you've got a whole bunch of things set up like envelopes and whatnot, it's a good starting place. Then you go back in here, and all I have to do now is just change this to noise. And then for noise, I would take EQ and move it up like this. Turn it on first of all. There's an on switch. And then get rid of some of those low frequencies. Because if it's like this, it's way too harsh. Something like that. And maybe you turn this down. And then you can put an envelope in here that puts a little spike in it. Let's see, if you want this way down. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of these little knobs, and you got to get just one of them. And then put the envelope. So you can play around with that till you get a little bit of a burst at the beginning. And that's what I did, and I'm not going to sit and bore you with tweaking it all, but that's what I have for this Saw 1, which I've sort of used as my starting place everywhere because I like that noise setup I have in it. So there we go. So I have that set up. With you can see that that's how I got the noise set up, and I got this cutoff and this envelope depth, and the envelope is this little spike. And I've got a key follow on it as well, so that the filter center moves with the keys a little bit, not all the way. You got to get all the way 100 for this to move note for note, the center frequency of your filter, or the cutoff frequency. But I think I got it, just 32 or whatever. So there you go. So that's a fairly easy patch. And then I've got a little bit more complicated patches here when you start to, let's look at the SawFat one. You start to do some other things. So what I have here is this, I started off with a similar patch, and I have this fat set up, and the fat basically takes the saw and 2 cycles of the saw, and it'll squeeze one of them and lengthen the other. If you change this fat control from 60, it goes between 127 and 0, and 64 is right in the middle, and 64 is, there's like no fat, right? So when you bring this down to some other number like this, now, and then what I did was took the fat control here and added it into the breath controller. So the fat will move with the breath to a certain extent. This amount that you have here in this little thing tells you how much it's going to move that knob for you by the breath. And what that does is it starts from here and moves it to up like this as you blow. And that sounds like this. That's what that one does. And then this one here is a square wave, and I got the square wave tuned down a couple octaves. And I also have the square wave. Let me just look at just the square wave. See, when I blow and I get higher, it turns off. It turns it off. And you do that by setting this level negative here. The cutoff goes positive when you blow, so that's why it, you can hear the higher frequencies, but then it cuts out. And then as it cuts out, this other partial that I have in here comes in. So that's why you get that. And that's how you do that. Now there are other ways to do that too, and in some of these other sounds, I've done it a different way. You can use an LFO. You can use an LFO with the offset a certain way with the step LFO, and then there's an attenuation signal that you can use, and they do something similar to that. But what I'm doing with this one is I'm doing it that way, and then I'm using this LFO. I have this little burst of this LFO with the fade time. See if I have it like this, and it's using this strange signal here, and I've got the fade time set pretty short, and I've got it set so it starts off and then fades out. And you do that, you have to go into Pro Edit and set up the LFO for the partial you're on, one, to on out, this signal here, on out. If you have it on in, when you go back to it goes the other way. Well, let me show you with just a regular sine. See how if I have the fade time, it goes like that. And then if I switch that to, you have to do this in the Pro Edit. Excuse me. Pro Edit here. So I go to on out, and then when I go back, you can see that it's doing that. Did I just change this? I changed this accidentally. No. So now it's fading out, and then I use this waveform that's got a little bit of randomness in it, or some modulation in it anyway, and then I've got this fade time really short. So let me reset it back to what it was. There's no undo on Zenology, so if I reset the patch by just switching back and switching there, then I have that. So you can hear a little bit of the, before I say that, let's see. So then this LFO is hooked up to, it's hooked to the amplitude. So you can hear that. If I make it longer, you'll notice it. So you can get that warble sound from changing the amplitude. You can also do it by changing the pitch, or you can change the filter envelope. Not filter envelope, but the filter cutoff, or the resonance, or some other things. You can, I don't know if you can change the resonance with the LFO, but right now we just got it hooked to, the LFO is hooked to the amplitude here. Anyway, that's how that one works. Okay, so then if I start another one of these examples, if I go to this SawGrowl, and what I've done here, this is pretty intense. Okay, so there's a lot of things going on here. So I have the noise, like I talked about, with the little pulse. I started with the regular saw signal, and then I added a little bit of square wave on a second partial, just to change the timbre a little bit. And the main saw wave here, let me turn off this one first, and I'll show you. So if I turn off this one, that's just very much like Saw 1 that I have already. And then I turn this one on. It's just a little different timbre, so I like that. And then what I did here on this one, if I turn this one on by itself and I blow, you'll hear, first it doesn't do anything, and then it cuts in, and it's got an LFO on it, so it's kind of a growl. And this was really hard for me to figure out how to make it not do anything till it gets a certain spot and then output a signal with the breath. So what I did was, I've got this set up so that this LFO1 on this partial is using the step LFO, which allows you to change each one of these 16 steps to a different level, and then you can do all kinds of things. But I just got it set to one level, so it's only doing this one level. And I've got it to just this DC-looking waveform. And I've got the waveform turned all the way negative here, like this. So if I turn this up, you can see that when I pull that down, it does that. And then this offset is set to negative here too. And this, if this wasn't doing it, it wouldn't do it either. You can hear the other LFO, and I'll get to that in a second. But there it goes. And then if I turn this down and wait till I get to a certain point where it does anything, because it has to overcome this offset first, and then it'll start outputting the waveform. And the other thing I have is I have this level set up here so that it's outputting something, because if I don't have this, it doesn't go as loud, and I don't really need to control the amplitude as much here by the breath, so I'm turning this on and this is coming up high. The breath is really controlling this offset. And then I've got this LFO set here to maximum. If I turn this down, by doing that, it's using this value that's in here more, and then the breath is changing this amplitude, and so it's doing this. So that's how I have that one set up. LFO2 is this waveform here with the rate really high. And that's how I'm getting the growly sound. Then when I go to the range control, and now here's the thing. The breath is controlling the amplitude LFO1. And that's what's causing this step and everything to, it's changing the amplitude here of LFO1. So LFO I've got all the way turned up, and then when I got the amplitude, it's pulling it back down. Which allows it to come in and just start getting in there on the little wiggle on it. On the other, on this signal basically has that LFO on it all the time, the other LFO. And that's how this works. So I got this little growl happening as a result of these machinations with these LFO levels and the breath signal, which wasn't easy to do, like I said. And then once you put it all together with the rest of the sounds, you get, and you can hear that warble there, that growl at the top. So that's how you do that. Okay, so if I look at another one here, I have PCM one. Let's look at the PCM one. Do that one. This sound uses a PCM saw wave, and then the effects is set to this guitar. Most of this sound is because of this effects. If I turn this effects off, it's actually too loud. The effects is going to limit it down. And this is set up pretty similarly. I just went through here and I just changed the signals. I took this sound and I just added the CCO2 cutoff and level to it, and it basically made this sound. So that's one of the strategies you can do, is you can just go into here and go into some, this is what I did. I went to digital lead, turned it on, and then it plays, but it doesn't have any breath control. So basically I went through the partials and switched this to a breath control here and did that. And so if I go back to PCM, go to that same one that I have all set up, that's all I did was I went to these different partials and changed them so that it did that. And then I think I might have also changed maybe the level here on some of these so that they were they responded more to the breath and not just this envelope. I know one of them's like that. So if I turn this one down, for example, and even more. So you couldn't get it to sound like that. I like that one better that way. So if I just went to the original digital leads, and I go to that one, I can't get those dynamics. It's just all one level, which is fine, except that's not what I want. So, and then these mixed ones have some PCM sounds and some other sounds. So, let's see. Yeah. This one has a fretless bass. There's nothing there. It's a fretless bass, stereo fretless bass setup. And then I've got some sine waves set up. I could probably make these a little different. Let's see. Level, cut, pulse width. Oh, I've got the pulse width set on these sine waves. So, and the fat a little bit so that it changes the shape of the waveform as you blow. Interesting. And then I probably have these set to different stereo signals. Let's go back over here. Yeah, they're panned. One's panned to the left and the other one's panned to the right. And then I've got the bass in the middle. And I can make these respond a little bit more to the breath. Let's see if I got this one set to, oh, the level. I got this one turned down. Let me just do this. Yeah, whenever you blow a little harder, it starts to take it out because I've got this negative. So that the other these patches can start to come in and override it when they're on. But if I look at those with the pulse width and the level and that setup, I could probably set these so that this doesn't matter. Yeah, I kind of like that better. If I have these levels up, the sine wave pops on right away. But I kind of like it with a little bit more breath control only, so let's do it that way. Nice. Okay. So that's a mixed sound. I got a trombone with a square wave. Let's see how that sounds. Two square waves panned left and right. So I can fart around with the levels here and change the balance between the the sine wave, pan. Oh yeah. You gotta get rid of that. Let's see, what signal is that on? So I've got, when I do the resonance, I got this resonance control hooked to the glide strip, and when that happens, it pulls the amplitude too high. So what I can do is set the resonance here and take the level down as a result. Oops. That'll counteract the resonance causing too much gain. That works. Okay. All right. Okay, so now that we've got a bunch of patches here, and we want to get them into the MC-101, what you do is you just hit right, and then you pick the bank you want, and you hit export. And then you pick the file you want to save it to, like this. And you say save, and overwrite it. You know, I already have one, so I'm just going to overwrite it. And then I'm going to write the other ones too, because I think I made some changes here. Yeah, same name. Overwrite it. And then I'm going to change the mix one and export it. There we go. Okay, so now what we're going to do is put the sounds into the MC-101. And you can do this by either taking the SD card out and putting it in your PC and transferring the files, or you can just turn off the unit and turn it back on and put it in storage mode. So I will put it in storage mode. Turn it off, and then you hold down the project button, turn it on. There you go, storage mode. Go to the right folder and you grab the files you want, copy them, go to the MC-101, shows up as a drive now. Go to sound, paste, and replace them if they're there already. Now if you don't have this sound folder, you just create the folder on here. Just call it sound, all capitals like that, and put it under the Roland folder. And then put your files in there. And then you'll want to eject this. Okay, now we're back here and we're in storage mode, so I just need to turn that off. Turn it back on. Okay, there we go. And now I'm using channel 4 is where I'm putting all this stuff. I have each one of these clips assigned to a different tone, and I'm just going to replace one here. I'll just pick this one. Okay, so now that's the patch that's already in there. And so what we'll do is we will change that. You have to go to here, and you can see it says clarinet, and then what you do is press this, and you go over to sound file, press it again, and then you search for the right folder or the right set of settings. So if I want to change it to one of these ones I did, like that, pick a different one. And then if you don't like that one, you can change it to one of these other ones. There you go. That's how you do it. Now, some of these patches, sometimes they will get affected by the settings in the MC-101 for the attack, decay, and release. There's a separate set of settings in the MC-101 for those values that you can set for each patch. So what you can do is you can look at, you shift sound when you're on the patch. First I exit, you're just on the patch itself. Now if I say shift sound to edit it, use it settings, and then you can go through here in these different settings and find, see, a lot of these settings are the ones that are in the top of the Zenology Pro. They have, but there's more than that in here. See, so there's the mono poly switch, the legato switch, for example, portamento, those different things, the cutoff, resonance, attack, decay, and release. And sometimes these can get set up wrong. If you set the decay, let's say or the attack really negative or something, see how it jumps on brightly like that? And then if you have the release set wrong, it may not be what you want. Oops. So you're going to be careful. It's not making that much difference on this patch, but some of the patches it makes a tremendous difference on. So if you have something funny going on, you might come in here and make sure this is set up right. The other thing that can be set up wrong is the cutoff filter might be set really low. Negative might be set way down like this. So you can't hear anything and what's going on. It doesn't work, right? Well, you can turn that up. And that works for the whole sound. So that's something important. And that's important enough that the way I have mine set up, I have these 4 knobs set up so that they work for the track. All 4 knobs work on the one track you're on, instead of the other way around where each knob is on a different track. And you can program what these knobs do. But what I have mine set to do is I have the cutoff here, so when I change the patch for this, I can always just grab this knob and I know it's the cutoff. And since the cutoff is changing with your breath, this is sort of a bias of the cutoff, or the sort of starting place of the cutoff. And then this is the decay, so sometimes, again, that doesn't matter with this patch that much because it doesn't ring out, but you could have one that does. Sys Control 1 is set up here. Sometimes that's set to the mod wheel, or the modulation of an LFO. It's not set up on anything on this one. And then I have the reverb send on this one. So because the Zenology Pro doesn't have a reverb, so it's nice to have an easy reverb to get to. Okay, so those are some of the tweaks you want to do, or might want to do on some of these patches. So if I change the clip to another, let's look at that one. If I change the settings here, cut off. Yeah, if I set the release here. Not making that much difference on this one either. There'll be one, and you'll need to change these values up. That's fine. Okay. The other thing that you can do with these clips is when they're playing. Let me just start playing this. If I go to the sequence on number 4 on clip, let's just do this on the first clip. if I can record with the EWI like this. You can hear it, it's not playing right because it didn't record the breath. It just recorded the notes. So if I blow as it's playing the notes, now and newly, without actually playing notes, so you can use it that way. It's pretty interesting. It's an interesting artifact of the MC-101 that you can do that. After the fact, you can change that. It doesn't record the pitch bend or the breath when you're doing that. Probably not even the glide strip either. So it's just an interesting thing that you can do with this. All right, so there you have it. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to get a copy of some of these patches to try on the MC-101 for yourself. If I get enough interest in this, I'll put some files up on GitHub or something like that. So let me know. Like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more like this. And I'll see you next time. Thanks.